You guys saw a little while ago I had to change out a conveyor at work, and finally I lucked into some grate material. The grate on the Wayne Keith is always made out of stainless. There are people that have made other iterations of it, some of them out of mild, some of them out of tubing, tone. You know, I mean, your design's a little bit your own, but obviously excellent job. Finally I got a hold of some material. That conveyor uses these backing plates all through it where the frame bolts through the fiberglass, and these are 1/8 inch stainless. I don't know what alloy, don't really care. So I just took and welded a bunch of them together, cut it out into a 15-inch diameter circle. Cut my finger in the process because I was being stupid. Anyways, so I got it all welded together. It already has a bunch of holes in it. These are 3/8 holes. I'm going to go a little bit bigger than that. My last grate, I used 3/8 holes, and you can put a lot of 3/8 holes in a corner of this thing. I think that's one of the reasons that my truck has an issue not breathing as well, as it can't flow through the grate as well. So I'm going to go with a little bit bigger holes. Wayne says to use holes that are about the size of your pinky finger. Well, no. 3/8 ain't big enough. So I got a bunch of those welded together, all 1/8 inch material. I used the same 3/4 by 1/8 mild that I used for the gasifier mount and some other parts I've already been making. I built a T-square underneath of it to brace it together. This will still allow it to do the potato chip effect. So this is going to get some more bracing over here and box this whole thing in. And then we'll go from the underneath side so that we don't run into the cross members, and we'll burn all of our holes. I'm going to use a plasma cutter just because I don't feel like killing a million drill bits trying to drill through stainless. But I'm going to finish getting this braced up. We'll blow the holes out in it, and that'll be the grate that hangs underneath of the gasifier. Then we're going to get some chains and get it mounted to the fire tube. I'm sure Wayne's mentioned it somewhere, but as far as the grate goes, this is not some masterpiece. This is something that's going to be subject to literally the heating fires of hell. So if you think you're gonna build it really, really nice and just enjoy looking at it, this thing is gonna live the hardest life you've ever possibly seen. This thing is going to be subject to 2,000 to 3,000 degree heat for hours on end. I don't see a point in trying to make it pretty. Literally every single piece of this, I did not use a measuring tape. Nothing. Every last piece was just eyeball cut, burn it in, keep it flat. That's all it is. As long as it's flat and not warped. You know, some warp is okay, but you don't want it, you know, a taco sitting here. That's why I fully brace boxed it in. You can see my outside bracing, I just stitch welded it in a couple places. That's plenty. And I mean, it's not worth putting a bunch of time into trying to make it pretty. This thing is just going to get its butt whooped. Granted, this grate is way heavier duty than the last one. This is the first time I've been able to build a grate with proper material. My last truck, I had a stainless kitchen sink that I found on the side of the road that was like 22 gauge. And I cut out 2 pieces of it, sandwiched them together, welded them together, and then blew the holes out. If you look in the construction video series, Wayne did the same thing, and he said, there's a notation in there, it didn't last very long. Mine's got 10,000 miles on it so far. 9 months-ish of daily driving. You know, truck takes breaks here and there. I've been driving the Dodge a lot lately while I'm building this gasifier, measuring stuff back and forth, making sure it's all going to work. But I mean, I have beat on that truck. And when I did a repair on it, I did straighten the grate, and I added new chains, because I had melted the old ones off. Then that's why we're going to be running heavy duty chains on this one, especially because this is going to be in my V10. That motor breathes like crazy. This thing is going to have heat going across it, just insane. So anyways, there it is, all boxed together. It's about as flat as I can keep it for welding mild to stainless. Looks neat. I don't really care about how it looks. Let's burn a bunch of holes in it. You get the idea, right? I'm gonna be here a minute. Now we've got our grate all punched out with all of our holes. We need to get it mounted onto the fire tube. So I used a 15-inch diameter circle. All I did was I took the lid of a small 15-gallon drum and traced my circle out. So I used the same piece, set it on here, traced the circle. I'll be running 6 chains on mine to mount the grate. So I just divided my circle up into 6. Really simple. You want your grate spaced about 1.5 inches off of the fire tube. So here I got 2 pieces of 5/8 board. They're a little bit warped. They add up to right about the right measurement I need. Here I've got my grate and how it's going to sit on there. Just like that. Now we need to be able to suspend it by chains hanging off the fire tube. The way that I've done it, so I've got some, I think this is a 5/16 chain. Now this chain has a weld spot in it. You notice where it's down here without the weld, it can slide very freely. If you flip the chain over, it kind of hangs up a little bit on that weld. So we're going to put that side down onto the fire tube so the smooth side allows the grate to swing back and forth. For my needs, I need 3 lengths of chain, so 1 will get welded down, and then we're going to burn out a hole in the grate just big enough that the chain link can fit up through it like that. So the bottom one will be welded on, and because we have this spacing, we'll put a bolt through here. That way the grate can be removed easily. And make sure if you're going to use this method, a washer on each side, give yourself some clamping load, make sure that this isn't going to fall out. And you also want to anti-seize the threads because this is going to get very, very hot. But right about like that is how the chains will sit. And me personally, I do 1 chain at a time all the way around, just so I can make sure the grate sits level, because obviously it's doing quite a bit of rocking right now. And that's because not only am I using a warp spacer, but the welds on my choke plate flange stick up a little bit. So there's not really a perfectly flat surface. So I weld the first one, and I make sure I set this height to 1.5 inches, and then I work my way around. You do want to make sure that when you do this, none of your chains will end up somewhere that you can't poke a hole because you've got bracing in the way. Now, my grate's pretty extreme because I beefed the living crap out of it. A lighter duty grate, like Wayne actually recommends to use a lightweight grate because that will enable it to purge easier because it's more likely to move around. My truck, 3/4 ton, 4-wheel drive, going to be seeing a lot of off-road, I have no doubt this grate will be able to shake just fine. It may be a different scenario if I'm driving down the road. I might actually need to shake the grate once in a while. But I won't know until I have it all put together and get it tested, because every gasifier, as Wayne has said, it's a female. They react how they want. They do what they want. You just kind of get to learn how to live with it. So I'm going to go ahead and get this first one welded on, start working my way around, place the other 6. A couple little tricks for you guys. Once you got 3 chains on and you've set your height and you know it's correct, take your big 5-foot pry bar or a 2x4 or whatever heavier thing you got, slide it up underneath and let the leverage of the bar hanging there suspend the grate. It'll stay the same pretty much all the way around. Pretty much sets your height. Now you've kind of got a little bit more free movement to get around it. Now to mark out your chain slots, just take a half loop of chain, line it up over the top of your mark, about where you want it. Quick little skiff of paint. There's your mark of where you need to cut out. Because once, like I said, once you have 3, it's going to stay where it's at. Now you can leave it right there, plasma cut your other holes, and hang 3 chains all at once. If your grate's got any distortion in it, this is where you can bend it a little bit to get your chain links to all line up on your mark down here on the fire tube. There we go. One chain mounted, free swinging grate system. Got a nice swivel to it. That should be able to purge any excess charcoal. As we're driving down the road, it's able to funnel out through the sides. Should be able to pass plenty of gas through the grate system itself as that gas is being processed right through that glowing hot char. I did have to beat it down just a little bit because as I was cutting these holes, these edges curled, so I just beat it back flat, and I've only got 1 chain that isn't resting perfectly. The rest are all in perfect contact. Some 5/16 hardware with some flat washers, run them down tight, and should be good to go. That's ready to go into the bottom barrel and get some insulation, start making some gas. Thanks for watching.